Hi, good morning. Welcome to Office Hours Friday. We're so excited to answer your media and production questions. We've got an awesome panel assembled. Alexander, let's kick it off.
First question this morning is coming from the QR code. Jeff Flukiger in Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. Apple is coming out with a new low-cost MacBook. What if Apple were to come out with something like Frame.io? Would this allow pros on a budget to make video edits on the cheap? Just speculating because it's fun.
First of all, very jealous that you are in Lake Geneva, Wisconsin. That's one of the most beautiful places I've ever been, just outside of Chicago. Jeff, thank you for making me jealous today. Chris, go ahead.
Make video edits on the cheap, like a subscription Final Cut? Is that what he's talking about?
Well, the question was specifically about Frame.io. So if they had an ability to, so you're out capture, I think about it in terms of distributed teams. If you have multiple people who are out there shooting video, uploading it to a service that's able to interconnect folks that maybe aren't going to be able to spend $15 a month on that service, but instead are as part of that subscription to Final Cut. Maybe that's a way to say you don't have all the internal storage to do project after project after project, but maybe this is a way that you can kind of offload some of that to this hard drive in the cloud.
Okay, so I wasn't understanding why Jeff was saying he started the thing about the new MacBook Pro, and then all of a sudden he's talking about some Frame.io subscription.
Well, but if the low cost MacBook
like saying
Pro is,
if my mother had 4 tires, she'd be a truck. I mean, it didn't quite. I didn't understand how it connected.
And if you would have put a little bacon in this, it would have been like a British carbonara. And then the Italian chef goes, but if my grandmother had a wheel, she would have been a bike. It's my favorite.
That's the one.
That's the one. No, but in this case, if you have a Mac that has anemic storage and anemic processing power, now you have a Frame.io type service that's then why not just use Frame.io? Maybe except for a cost perspective, but now you're able to download those proxy files and do your edits, and then maybe do a render in the cloud with the full fat media.
So this is what I would say to Jeff's comment. Interesting idea. I apologize I didn't follow along better. Realistically, I would not want to edit files that are on the cloud. I edit all day, every day, and one of the things that is the most frustrating about editing is latency. And even a slower hard drive makes you want to put your head through a wall. And the slowest hard drive you're going to have access to is one that's on the cloud. So hard drives are pretty inexpensive. I would take that MacBook Air. I know they have at least one port, right? They have to have one port. Get yourself a little drive and plug it in. Do it that way. I think that would be a better way of working.
The other thing that I think about is, with how powerful even the less expensive computers have become, that it is a democratizing thing in a way that you do not need a heavy iron M3 Max, M4, M5, whatever, to get started. Your barrier to entry is not, oh, I've got to get saddled with iMovie. You can start on a lower cost MacBook and still run Final Cut. I used to run it on, it was terrible from a real estate perspective, but I've run it on an 11-inch computer before. And I was like, wow, I can't believe I'm getting something out of this. Whereas before I needed a Mac Pro.
So what, your canvas was at 25% or something?
Yeah, it was terrible. And it wouldn't support the external monitors. But the fact that I could do something, like just do a little assembly while I was in the back seat of a car, and then when I got to the next place, I could plug it into a big screen, just wasn't possible. And I know it's been possible for a long time, but the lower and lower, I look at the $599 or $499 Walmart version of the M1 MacBook Air as your barrier to entry into getting into these real creative tools is lower than it ever was before. And it's exciting times. Next question.
This question's from Chris Fenwick in Emeryville, California. I think the subscription crippling is on its way. We should discuss.
So, oh, wait. Okay, go ahead.
Hands, Chris, hands.
I thought I didn't raise my hand.
Well, I heard Chris earlier in the morning talk about this a little bit, but I've already been through this once with Apple, because when they first put out the iPad, I was excited about it and thought, this is going to help take care of a problem I have at a Christmas party. because I did a Keynote Family Feud slide deck so that we could answer questions, and we gave out prizes and other things, little things, lottery tickets, candy bars, things like that. But then they rolled back certain features on Keynote that would only work on the MacBook again, and I had to go back to this podium setup and so forth. I don't know. I'm not happy with the subscription idea, because if you already have that functionality and now you're going to take it away and rent it back to me, that's quite a loss.
Chris, what are you thinking?
Yeah, it's the taking back that I have problems with. I've mentioned this a few times, I think this week. I actually built a slide for it here. Klaus Schwab, he was the head of the World Economic Forum. He said, you'll own nothing and you'll be happy. And actually, he's known for saying it, but there's some other stuff at the bottom there. So it's going to happen. Everything that you used to own, you're going to have to rent it. And this is what happened with me. So I decided last night, in some fashion, and I'm not exactly sure how, I'm going to bring back my old podcast. I'm rebranding it. I'm changing the name because they dropped the X. I'm making it purple because purple. And then I started putting together a numbers spreadsheet. And I opened up the numbers, and I created a spreadsheet. And this is how you do a podcast. You make a list of 100 people that you want to interview, and then you start. And then I wanted to share this with my friend Brad Olson. So I hit the share button, and wah, wah, wah. And I wanted to collaborate. Now, this is something that 2 weeks ago I could absolutely do in numbers. I could collaborate on a spreadsheet or a Keynote deck or a Pages document, and you literally have, two cursors, and we're working on it together, and it's collaboration, okay? But now, with numbers 14.5, which is the only one I can download because I haven't chosen to subscribe, it says, well, no, you have to get the new version, or you can not collaborate. I can share the document with them, but I can't. So it's like we're going to see, it's going to be like death by 100 paper cuts of removing features. And the problem is they're removing a feature. It'd be fine if they invented collaboration this week and they gave it to me via the subscription model. But they're literally taking features away. And it dawned on me, and I can't think of the specific example, but Keynote existed before Keynote Pages and numbers. Yep. And there was a hobbling back then as well. And I can't remember exactly what the feature was. It was kind of a tweaky, sort of nerdy one that I used all the time that most people didn't realize was there. And when they came out with the new version of Keynote, and this is this was a long time ago. This is 20 years ago. I was like,
Yeah, probably when they went, that's probably iWork 08 was the first, they did a major rewrite.
Yeah, it was when iWork came out, because Keynote existed prior to that. So anyway, this is annoying. I think this is kind of troubling, and it speaks to where the future of this thing goes. Now, on the plus side, I'm going to try and be positive. There also have, millions of potential users who are going to be giving them $13 a month. So let's say it's 1 million users that want to use this subscription. That's $13 million a month. This is my message to Apple. You better put that money back into development. You really, hire the engineers, step up the features, do your job. You need to do your job, because if you don't, I am going to come after you to the point where you're going to want to sue me. But this is infuriating to me.
And the hope is that this is an oversight, that they didn't that they put this in there that, oh, this is going to be in the new
It's not
version.
an oversight.
But for a long time, when they upgrade to a new version of Keynote, if you have one version older of Keynote, you haven't been able to use the collaboration features. I've seen that for a few years. So my hope is that they made this delineation, and the people that are working on collaboration functionality aren't thinking, oh, but the new one's only subscription. They have time to course correct for this. This intentional nerfing of a core feature just seems...
This is intentional. I promise you, there's too many people that are on top of this. They have taken away a feature to encourage me to subscribe.
And it's some of the same frustration that we see with Photoshop. And when they have a feature that now is tied, if you don't have Adobe Creative Cloud, then we're not going to do this. And I think when I look at production tools, like something like a DaVinci Resolve, I think does a better job than most of saying we are going to offer you enough of the core functionality for free $99 that you're going to want to get to know the tool and use the tool. And then when you say, okay, I want to do 8K or I want to do the immersive Vision Pro stuff, then we're going to make you pay the studio. That's the better model. And they're not doing this thing where they're trying to take the core thing, the video editor, and make it subscription. They'll work on a different service to augment it with the storage with Blackmagic Cloud, but they're not taking the core product and then saying, sorry.
Yeah, and I want to say, and because I see that Oliver has his hand raised, Oliver, I'm not against the principle of subscription. And I know that that's the way your company works, and I'm totally fine with that. It's the removing, and then, if you look at what has happened, and I remember I had, I can't remember the guy's name. He was like the head software guy at Adobe when they went subscription. And I had him on my old podcast, and I was like, you guys are going to ruin this thing. He goes, no, it's going to be great. And, now you have an Adobe Premiere that many people, not everybody, but many people complains, crashes all the time. And it's like, I'm just saying, Apple, I will ruin my career. I will end my career on this hill that you better put that money into development. Like, I want to see $13 million worth of new development a month or else.
Oliver?
Yeah, I totally get your point, Chris, and I totally understand where you're coming from. I just don't think that's how it's gonna roll out, because that's America, and Apple needs to keep increasing their profits. So my fear is that a tiny part of these, and make that 130 million a month, go to, development, and that will be spent on making more or less crappy, new premium content, which I looked at today, and it's awful. That's, I get you. I think there's one thing that maybe, I don't think that it's that intentional, that they removed that specific feature, because I think there's a lot going on in, making sure that the collaboration works in terms of protocol. And I think it's not easy to support too many different, ways of collaborate, sending
but it
data
was
over.
working.
It was working. But if you have, like, let's say version 15 and version 12, then there's a mismatch in features, and making sure that they work in both ways is totally, impossible. And so, it may be a mixture between, the decision of making the thing a subscription in the first place, and then running into the technical restraints. That means that it's not easy to maintain communication between two versions of the app that support different feature sets. And
I chalk this up way more to a lack of thoughtfulness about how they rolled this feature out than intentionally nerfing it. I'm going to say incompetence over malice. Alexander?
Okay, when I see that dialogue box that Chris showed, I find it really upsetting. I'm gonna try not to swear. In fact, I'm gonna squeeze this air puffer to take my anger out on this, so I can keep my composure. But I don't have a problem with paying for software that I find of value. The issue is that Apple, as a $1 trillion company, has offered these tools, I don't know however much. They're a rich company, one of the richest companies in the. Yeah. There you go, $4 trillion. Okay, who's counting, right? My problem is that they've offered these apps for free, and to have to have that kind of experience with that kind of message on that dialog box, where you are totally bricking the software, and you can't, in that example, share that or collaborate anymore without paying for a subscription. To me, it just seems like the mafia. You're just trying to extort that person. And to me, it's completely the antithesis of what Apple is about. They used to have this motto that you don't really hear much anymore in presentations. They always used to say, we like to surprise and delight our customers. And to me, I just feel like Steve Jobs would be rolling in his grave saying, this type of thing right now. It's just like, this is completely the opposite of what Apple should be about. They are ruining the experience for customers. And I'd much rather them have some kind of perpetual license, just charge people up front for it. But this obsession with profits all the time, I get it. They are not technically doing anything wrong as a publicly traded company, but even Tim Cook has said many, many times, when on phone calls with the shareholders, when people have pushed back on them, saying, "Oh, well, you should increase services revenue and all this stuff," and he's been quoted as saying, "Well, if you don't like it, you should get out of the stock." And I feel like he's doing the opposite of what he's said publicly. Well, they're becoming the company that we don't want them to be.
And to bring this back into kind of the lesson that we can all take from this, from a production perspective, is, if our customers and clients have an expectation that they're getting something, and then we say that we're going to start charging for it, and they were always getting it for free, there's going to be pushback. And then that's going to affect your relationship with your clients. And so if you need to start charging more for something, you need to also make that, because you've got to run your business, right? You've got bills, you have employees to pay, you have a rental house that you're dealing with, you're considering whether you're going to make a CapEx investment in equipment. So you need to raise revenue. But the way that you raise revenue is very important, because if your clients are not enthusiastic about spending more money with you, they're going to start looking elsewhere. So the way to make someone happy about giving you more money is saying to them, we're going to give you more perceived value. When you do it without thought, when you do it sloppily, like we're seeing this roll out right now, you get a backlash. And you have customers who are saying, I'm fed up and I'm not going to take it anymore, right? They're going to do a network. They're going to start looking somewhere, sick and tired, sorry. They're going to look somewhere else because all of a sudden you've taken this seesaw of like, they're getting this much value for this much dollar. And when you start adding more and more dollars and more and more dollars and more and more dollars, and their perceived value is not increasing, they are not going to be happy with you as a vendor. Chris?
So I just wanted to say, first of all, Oliver, I appreciate your comment about maybe if the collaborating between version 14.5 non-subscription and version 15 subscription, maybe that was a little hard to pull off. But they were collaborating fine between 14 and 13. So maybe. CJ, you said you prefer to think of this as incompetence rather than malice. I think it's the two words you used.
Yes.
I totally disagree. And I also just wanted to say, Oliver, you also made the comment about, well, this is sort of an American thing. And I think what Oliver was referring there to is what Alexander glazed on, is in the United States at least, and I don't know if this is not a worldwide thing, publicly traded companies have a fiduciary responsibility to the shareholders to not just make money, but make more money, and make more money than the quarter or the year before or the decade before. There has to be growth, and they can be the the executives of that company can be held liable or can be sued for not showing growth. And that's, I think, what Oliver was referring
it's a
to.
tough thing.
So yeah, they got to make more money. But what I'm saying is, I better see huge improvements.
And again, for this group, if you're needing to make a change in your business model because of the way that the financial situations are changing in your world, you have to be really thoughtful about how you're going to do it, or you risk losing the relationships. And it's 10 times more expensive to get a new customer than to keep the existing ones happy. And so you've got to always be thinking about relationships.
And the reason I say it's not incompetence, because they made the dialog box, CJ. Somebody had to compose that dialog box, and I promise you there was a week of meetings about exactly what words to put in this dialog box. This is not a mistake. This was done on purpose. Absolutely done on purpose. We're going to start taking features away to get you to subscribe.
Next question.
This question comes from Guy Cochran in Seattle, Washington. How could we use the new UniFi travel router in production on location?
Tom?
Well, in production, I don't know that I'd use the UniFi travel router, because you're probably at a venue that has, gig plus speeds going out to the WAN and so forth. And you're not going to get the great throughput you would from a better router, even something like the GLI net. But I've had 2 weeks now to play with the little travel router, and I am absolutely in love with this thing. It's pre-configured once you adopt it into your UniFi system. It's got Wi-Fi 5, not 7, but MIMO 2x2, so you can, use multiple antennas. VPN tunnel back to your home network. And what does that give you? It actually gives you a lot of things. First of all, I can now take on travel one of these little cameras, and all I have to do is plug it in, and all of a sudden it's recording back at home on my UNVR just fine. I also tried this out at a coffee shop. I booted the thing up. My wife was using her iPad also, and she was able to do streaming off of the Tableau at home or watch live TV from an antenna that I have at home. So, you take an Apple TV with you on tour, and you can watch anything that you do from home. This thing is great. It has plenty of bandwidth for, a small family, and that's where it really shines.
Oliver?
Yeah, I think that's the greatest thing about this thing, is that it instantly connects you back home, and there's not a lot of setup you have to do, because you can just configure this in the UniFi stuff. And Tom, did you try if it can do UDP? Because that would be interesting for NDI and ways to.
I did not, but I would expect it would.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
when we're talking about bringing, whether it's a Unity or a GLI net out on the road, the more the solution that we're getting is lower cost and on the consumer end, the more it's going to be tailored to, okay, I'm going to be able to use this for, basic communication things that are not relying on real-time communication, things that are not mission critical in production. But if I'm going into an office that's not my own, or a hotel or whatever public Wi-Fi, and I have a router that's pre-configured to hop on to Tailscale or something like that, and then connect to my services in the back end, I don't have to go through and reconfigure all of those individual devices to get back into my home network. They all just connect, and now that little hub that I brought along is the tunnel back to home base. It's a time saver. So it's when you're setting up, if you're able to save that setup time every single time you move from location to location to location, that's where maybe it doesn't have a gee whiz fancy production, quote unquote, use because of where it because of what it's able to do. But you have to look at all these tools and how can I use that to save me time and make me more efficient and more nimble as I move from place to place. Ronny?
Yeah, so we've been using a lot of GLI nets. So the question is now about the new travel router from Ubiquiti. I have it on my purchase list. I haven't purchased it yet because I'm still waiting for comments like already been mentioned here. But I wonder if anyone has tried. This is the new product from Ubiquiti, the industrial version of the travel router, which has SIM cards. It has more rugged construction. I'm looking into that now instead of the travel router. So I don't think the travel router is a professional product. It's more for the roaming office users that need VPN tunnels or Ubiquiti's take on that. And,
am I using this to make more efficient my administrative tasks or my actual live on the screen production tasks? Those are they're both can be equally time consuming. But what tool am I using for the job? Tom?
Well, exactly. The ability to go to a coffee shop to be set up in just a minute. The fact that it's so light, fits in your pocket, no problem. And the fact that you don't have to retrain the family. Once you've gotten past the paywall or whatever you're at, then all the rest of the devices just automatically connect in and go. There's no setup. It's so easy.
And anybody who's worked on a team of more than just yourself knows that if everybody gets to the meeting and all their stuff can't talk and you're trying to troubleshoot people one by one, all of a sudden that becomes a very expensive hour. Next question.
This one's from Tamara Pica in Los Angeles. I have to go on a quick trip for work. What's the best small travel kit advice you have to keep me looking and sounding office hours ready?
Ronny.
Yeah, so if you're careful, you can use something like a microphone from Shure, which this is the MV6 that we are starting to ship out to clients in our kits. If you already have something else, let me show you. This is the MV7 Plus, which also has XLR, so it's more kind of future-proof where you can insert that into a normal interface. But both these microphone versions from Shure is using a dynamic microphone, which is good for background noise reduction, not removal, but it can still probably hear my family in the background. But it definitely makes it easier to use in a noisy environment or a bad sounding environment because it is not that as sensitive as condenser microphone. And one other cool thing about all these Shure microphones, and of course a lot of the other ones, is that it has a built-in interface. So you can just add something like maybe some Sennheiser earpieces and have a solution to go. And the only thing you need in your computer is a USB available USB plug, and then you're good to go for the sound part. Regarding the video, most newer laptops, at least the ones we are seeing that Apple is coming onto the market with, have decent cameras. Just make sure that you lift it up and have the camera in your eye height so that you have a better point of view for the camera. Doesn't show your nostrils or whatever you have features in your face. And of course, make sure that you have enough light if the room or the place you're sitting does not have light in front of you. You should definitely have that in place and make sure that you are sitting towards the window, not looking away from the windows, because the big light coming in from the windows will definitely make the picture look worse than it should. So that's my 2 cents.
Guy? Oh, can't hear you, Guy.
Sorry about that. It depends. It depends on how much you want to spend. One of the pieces of equipment that I usually take as an Insta360 link, but I'm seeing really good reviews on this little YOLO Cam $199 S3. I haven't tried it personally, but I looked at a lot of videos and I'm super impressed because it has a bigger sensor than the Insta360, so that might be my new pick. The other things, besides the Insta360, I usually take along these Aperture MT Pros, and they look like this. They're long tube lights, but they come with the kit that has these little tripods that you can mount them horizontally or vertically. So depending on how you want to roll, you could have that. And then for microphone, I've been taking this little video mic NTG that looks like this. It's got headphone out on it as well. And then you can see that mine's already got the next item, which is the Triad Orbit mounting system. So then I can go ahead and mount these clamps onto desks and hotel. I'll usually grab, like, if there's a lamp or something, a torsier lamp, I'll clamp onto that and I'll move it to wherever I want. And the other thing is, if you have an iPad or a TV, and if it's in a hotel room, to put your eye line so that you have your extended desktop. If it's a Zoom meeting, you can put your people on the other display and then line them up so that it's directly behind your camera. So then you can still look at people dead in the eye and it looks like you're looking right at them. So I'll usually crop off part of their image and put them behind me. If it's my iPad Pro, I could put them right behind the camera, and so I could look them in the eye and it looks like I'm looking right at them. So a couple tips.
Chris?
If you're looking for another camera option, the Hollyland Lyra is one that I've heard really good things about. It's got a really big sensor. It's pretty affordable. Might be another option to look at.
I recently picked up, and I didn't think it was going to be as big of a deal as it ended up being, but it was from Small Rig, and it was a tablet mount for the iPad, or any tablet, doesn't matter. Right, it's got the little 1/4-20 so I can put it on a tripod on the bottom. That's all well and good. But on the top side, it's got a cold shoe mount. And so what I was able to do is then take a cold shoe to a 1/4-20, put that on top of where the iPad is. And now, because the iPad can take a external camera input and an external microphone input, I can break that out into a little hub and then stick the iPad on a monopod at appropriate height, so that my neck's not craning and I'm not doing this looking back and forth the whole time. So the camera's at the proper height for eye line. The people are at a natural place. Sometimes I put them on the other side of the table because it almost feels like a little bit like the Jetsons, like you're looking across. And I think Chris has, that's a newer version than the one I have that Chris is showing now. Mine just has the cold shoe mount. This just has the 1/4-20. So you could get a double one of those and put it on top. But that plus a monopod is a pretty powerful thing because it breaks down so small. And then if you're joined to the meeting with a second machine that's doing your screen share, or if you're or just you're as a second participant, you can have the video off on that, do your screen share from your local computer, and then the iPad that's actually running the Zoom is a separate thing. Mickey also brought up in the chat some good points about using an iPhone as an external camera. The last 3 or 4 iPhones have been really, really slick with continuity camera. It works better if you use a cable as opposed to doing it over the Wi-Fi. But the trick is, they're like $10, $12. You can get a MagSafe, like little, go on the back of the phone. And then that makes it sit just nice and perfect. I know that Belkin even has one that you can use it as a little kickstand for your phone during the day. And then when you need it in a meeting, there's like a little tiny lip that comes off on the other side. I'll try to find a picture of it while Ronny had a comment. Go ahead, Ronny.
Yeah, just there's something I've done one time in my life, and it was a total emergency. I was in a hotel room and I had to be in a conference call or a Zoom call, and I had no lights with me, and the hotel room was having a bad solution for lighting. So the only thing I had was a light that had to be behind me, and that looked awful. I actually placed myself in front of the TV, found a YouTube video which was very bright, and put that on full light brightness in front of me, and that actually worked. So emergency call for special solutions, and having a big TV display in front of you can actually give you some light. Just make sure that your camera is matching the color temperature of the white picture you have on the display in front of you.
Mickey also brought up the Camo app still has in a lot of cases, better reliability. The continuity camera, I've had it work really well, and then I have times where it's finicky and just drives me absolutely insane. The other one of the other office hours truisms that you can take with you as you're traveling around and trying to figure out, how to make sure that you look and sound good is that treating the space and using the environment is just as powerful as any gear as you're going to bring along. So where's the strongest light source in the room? How am I making sure that I'm mitigating that? I'm either blacking it out or I'm using it to my advantage to light myself up. What's in my background? Does it look clean? Is there I've had a situation where the best spot when I was at NAB 2 years ago, the best spot in the room was, kind of semi up against a wall with a bunch of cabinets that weren't very reflective in terms of light. There was a little bit of light behind me, but where I had to set it up, because it wasn't a very big room, like that was the spot. And I found myself, asking for extra towels so that I could kill some of the reflections that were coming off of the wall in front of me, but also use those as a bounce for some of I had the Pavo tubes that were the similar to what Guy had showed there with tube lights, but the light was really harsh coming at me. So I knew the reflected light would be more flattering for the situation. So it's like I'm getting creative. I'm opening up the cabinet door, putting a towel over it so that it's softening the reflection of what's in front of me and the light that's bouncing back. And it is a trial setup, so it's not going to be pretty. It's not going to look nice. I'm making do with what I've got. But ultimately, like what's going out on the frame and how you look and sound trumps everything else. The most important thing is what the deliverable is. So how you get there isn't always pretty, especially when you're traveling. But if you're being thoughtful about it, like you are, Tamara, you end up with something pretty great. Next question.
This one comes from Tommy Shantz in St. Paul, Minnesota. Fastball to Guy. What's all this new fuss about visual reasoning?
Guy?
This was released by Stream Geeks / PTZ Optics and Paul Richard earlier this week, and I'm pretty blown away. It solved a piece of the puzzle that I had been missing in something I was working on. Basically what it is it's using AI to detect what's going on. And they've been on the show before and showed this, but they were using onboard hardware, and it was super expensive, and it was having to be updated all the time. Now what they're doing is totally different. So they have this website you could go to, visualreasoning.ai, and in there's a link where it says try the live demo. And if you go to the try the live demo, they have 20 different tools, and one of them, this is a live camera downstairs, and I loaded in the Moonbeam or Moondream API because that's how you get it to run. Is it uses a call to this Moondream API, and it's free. You can get like 5,000 calls a day. So I just said detect what's going on in this video, and it says a black object, possibly a piece of furniture or equipment, is positioned against a wall in a dim, blah, blah, blah. So basically it describes a scene. Well, the cool thing is if you have a PTZ camera, you could say, well, zoom in on that thermostat. Or if you're doing something like you are an installer or something, I just said draw a detection box around the thermostat. So now when I turn that on, it detects the thermostat. So you could say like guitarist, drums, bassist, there's all kinds of new things that you can do with this type of AI detection. So I'm excited to give it a shot for yourself. You can put in any NDI camera, any SDI camera, and you can start to see where this stuff becomes really cool. There's also one for Chris doing sports stuff. There's tools for detecting scoring, and there's all kinds of automation. So they released 20 tools yesterday. You should go check them out. It's really cool.
Oliver?
Yeah, this is one of the things that you think, I wish I had thought of that. And in my case, I have thought of that, but I haven't followed through. So Paul, congratulations on doing this. There's some interesting things in the background. So the Moondream AI that powers most of this stuff actually runs on a Mac in local mode, so you don't have to spend the money on their credits if you don't want to. It's also all of that is open source, so a lot of things that you can add to that. Yeah, it's the most interesting thing I think is from our perspective is actually the scoreboard thing that looks at your scoreboard and understands the sport you're playing and gives you the context and things like that. And then there's the other thing that describes the scene, and that's something a lot of people who do government work or something like that have to do by, I think, mid-May or something, is to provide a spoken description track that tells you what you see on the screen for accessibility. So this is all very, very exciting and very and it's really something we should have done before. So and also it's amazing that they offer all of this at an open source, so everyone can play around with it and improve it. And I think this is just the beginning, and there's a lot of stuff you can do with when the computer can look at the images and tell you all kinds of stuff about it. And as a matter of fact, they have like an app on the iPhone, and then that's where it really gets interesting. It's like that only runs locally on the iPhone using the Apple Foundation models, which tells you the same thing is going on in other places as well. And let's see what's coming off of it.
Guy?
Yeah, when I had mentioned that it had unlocked something else for me earlier, I was using Claude via the phone to talk to DaVinci Resolve, and basically it has a API calls where you can move the playhead around to certain locations, but because it doesn't have eyes, you couldn't tell what clip was in the timeline. And so this unlocked a big piece of the puzzle for me. In fact, I sent it over to Oliver just to see what he thought of it. Basically, when I got it working, this is me talking to DaVinci Resolve through my phone through what's called a Claude MCP. So it takes about 5 seconds for it to 3 to 5 seconds. But it was describing what was in the scene now. So I could be on the beach and say, hey, swap that clip 3. What is it, clip 3 right now? And it'll visually tell me what clip 3 is. It could swap it out. And then I could say, now export that DaVinci Resolve to my YouTube. So it could look at a watch folder, grab clips, put them inside of the timeline, tell me what they are visually. It could scan through footage that was uploaded by a shooter, tell me what it is, and let me make decisions, even 3-point edits.
Edit.
And edit. Can you give them a little description, Oliver, of what you saw, what I showed?
Yeah, so Guy taught it, and that's not understating things. He taught it how to edit in DaVinci Resolve, and that's like kind of even blew my mind. It's like he taught it how to replace a clip and doing a 3-point edit, and that that's totally awesome. I mean, it's like how now you can teach the machine to do stuff that you wanted to do. So that's how that's exciting.
And when you said you were talking to Claude, Guy, were you just using the Claude voice mode, or were you using like a whisper flow?
Just the app on the phone.
Oh, okay.
So basically now I could talk to my phone and say, switch to camera 2. So I got Atem control. I could control DMX lights. I could say, switch this color to green, full DMX control, thanks to Ronny. Ronny helped me figure that part out. And then I got the Behringer X32 working. I could say, make the vocal preset on channel 3, more sibilant or less sibilant or whatever you went there. And then now I got control of DaVinci Resolve. And this is all through a gateway. It's basically like a translator. Think of MCP as a translator. So you talk to Claude on anywhere in the world through your phone, and then it can go in there through a tunnel and make basically hand moves. Like it can move my Behringer faders up and down. So it's an unlock code to make things move physically in the world, but it didn't have eyes. And now with this visual reasoning, you now have eyes for AI, which is, it's blowing my mind. It's really cool.
I'm going to sneak in one more adjacent tip to this, because I was hanging out a little bit with Ryan Rademan this week, and he blew my mind when he's like, you're not talking to your terminal? I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, when you're using Claude Code, are you typing everything? I was like, yeah. He's like, no. He installed Whisper Flow on my machine, and now I'm with Claude Code, and I'm in Terminal, and I'm holding in the hotkey, and it's listening, but it's not doing its straight dictation. It's actually doing some cleanup and doing some prediction on what I'm going to say. And so what you end up with is it cuts out all the ums and the uhs and the likes, and it knows that when I say super bass, it's not super PERBASS. Like, it actually comes in, and so like there's context into what I'm saying. And now all of a sudden I'm literally talking to Claude Code when I'm trying to develop whatever I'm working on. And I'll put a link in the chat, but it ended up being really, really cool.
Everybody knows that when you make a good AI, it has to have eyes, Guy.
Yes.
It has to have eyes.
Red ones, right?
Next question.
This question comes from David Brady in New York City, New York. As an old-time film student and learning the rule of thirds and basic framing theory, I've been asked to shoot vertical video for the socials, and it makes my brain hurt and shots stink. What resources are out there to retrain my brain?
Chris?
Okay, David Brady, love you like a brother. Here's the deal. You're right. It sucks because we have decades of framing shots. But think about what we do when we frame a person in a wide aspect ratio shot. Half of what we're doing is worrying about the stuff that's in the background, or we're putting somebody slightly off center. We're giving them a little negative space. We're lighting stuff in the background. If you think about it, a talking head is just the talking head. And I agree with you. It's weird. But when you crop all the side stuff out, you get to concentrate. Also, I'll say, framing for vertical is not so much about composing a great-looking shot. It's about shooting a shot that won't be screwed up by all the overlays in the social media thing, the barrage of crap in the frame that's going to ruin your image. So what I would recommend to everybody out there, do a little of the Googling or the AIing or whatever they call it. There are plenty of people that put out templates and overlays and PNGs that show you, like, this is how much real estate TikTok takes away from your frame. This is how much real estate Facebook takes away from your frame. This is how much Instagram takes away from your frame. And you can make an amalgamation of all that. And what you'll find is there's a sweet spot where you want to put your stuff. Now, keep in mind, you probably have a face and an eye line, and just like we do in this show, if we go to the grid here, we try to frame everybody so their heads are about the same and equal, and our eye lines. Yeah, there we go. Thank you, back-end team. I love and appreciate you. So we try to make things consistent. If you're doing that with your vertical, you want to do the same thing. There's a spot where the eye line works the best. And then if you're creating text, you got to make sure it's not fighting with the other stuff. So do a little Googling, find those templates, and that's the key to shooting vertical video. But you're right, it's a stupid frame.
Chris, you're excited today, more than usual. It's impressive.
It's because I'm really fired up about bringing back my podcast. I don't know how I'm going to do it. I'm going to need some help.
Well,
there you go.
Speaking of help, there are a couple ways that you can help office hours if you're feeling that there's some value here. If you're getting some value out of the show, there are a couple ways you can provide value back. Number one, you can always like and subscribe. We have a tremendous amount of volunteer opportunities, both during the show and around the show. I mean, this community is run by 100% volunteers. Nobody's getting paid. We're just doing this because we love it, because we're getting something out of it. And another way that more and more people are starting to give back, and we appreciate it, is by going to officehours.global/donate and saying, what was that show worth to me today? How much time did I save? What was I able to solve? What was I able to go get? If you give some of that back, we appreciate it. It helps us keep the lights on. Value for value. Next question.
This one is coming in from John Nichols in the Bay Area, California. Any advice on running Zoom tiles to show polls during an all-team event? These polls are used for filler between agenda topics.
Ronny.
Yeah, so we've been using a lot of different tools through the years, and I'm not sure Zoom Tiles is the correct product he is asking about. I have a small suspicion it is actually the graphics toolkit. So using the graphics toolkit for this is easy. You just connect it to the room, and of course make sure you have the license for that, so that you can use the graphics toolkit. Connect it to the room, create polls in the Zoom meeting that you would do the normal way. And then the graphics toolkit will extract that information and put it into beautiful visualizations that you can then take into your Vision Mixer or Mimo Live or whatever you're using to put the picture back into Zoom, so that even panelists or those in the Zoom meeting can be able to see that, or add it to your broadcast if you're streaming this externally out of the Zoom environment as well. And this is kind of dynamic. There are some good starting points in the graphics toolkit, and that makes it kind of easy to start somewhere, and then you can just use normal HTML or web technologies to redesign the entire experience and have it shown the way you would like it to be shown. And I have to say, I think the whole community, both office hours and around the globe, we're a little bit hesitant to take advantage of these really, really powerful tools that Zoom are making for us. And just being, just start looking at the Zoom graphics toolkit and you will be amazed what it can do for you. And it adds a lot of features into your broadcast and a lot of professional qualities as well.
And if you're familiar with other HTML graphics tools, we know one of the powerful things about that is because HTML is just code, we can start to partner with tools like Claude Code or others to help us. If I'm not an HTML developer, I'm not a web developer, I can still say, hey, I want this to look a little different. What if you move this and that over there? What blew my mind about the Zoom's graphic toolkit is that I go into the dashboard here, and I can see I've got, okay, these are the questions that are coming in. Here's my chat scroll. If I want to include a poll, I can. And then there's those reactions. And I can manage all that over here on this left pane. But it's how tight the integration was. I didn't have to do any sort of engineering and plugging wires together. How am I going to get the stuff out of my webinar or out of my meeting and in? Like, that plumbing was just rock solid. And so then when I wanted to bring in, I was using Ecamm at the time, but I brought in a widget overlay and plugged it into where ZGT was, and then boom. Amazing. Next question.
This question is coming in from Oliver Breidenbach, and he's asking, Ronny is working on an awesome way to automate productions like office hours. Spill the beans.
Oh, a tease. Ronny?
Yeah.
Spill.
I didn't have the time to set up a demo for today, but I promise I will do everything in my power to have that running tomorrow. So what I basically done is to make connectors to different types of software APIs. One going into the thing we are using here in office hours, and the other way is looking at looking at the Mimo Live, and making sure that we can have some kind of, you guys know the thing we are doing in QLab, where you actually have a list that is representing the sequence that you are going to loop through. And what I'm thinking of is a way to have a one-man show, but being produced kind in a template way, like Office Hours Daily Show is, and then Extra Hours and all, where we have kind of a loopable production sequence that is repeating itself over and over again. In this format, we have questions that panelists are asked questions, and then we are answering them, and that is kind of a repeatable pattern, and that pattern is defined. And the thing I was thinking of, how can we make sure that this is available for everyone? So the solution is running in Companion. I will also be porting it to BitFocus buttons for even more advanced workflows inside buttons. I have some slight issues with them, and I have to ask the BitFocus gang to help me a little bit on the. Maybe they have to extend some more features to be able to do what I'm thinking of. And the thing is, this is a free plugin. It will be put on BitFocus Companion, and you can add that to your Companion installation, and then start to use really, really advanced automation inside Mimo Live, but externally from Mimo Live. It doesn't even rely on Mimo Live's automation layer, which just add to the options that we can have. So this is kind of a plugin in Companion that automates everything that you need to do, and really makes it easier for one-man shows and one-man productions to be looking really advanced using Mimo Live in the other end.
Guy?
I just wonder if this is going to help Chris with his new show. Does this mean he gets his new show? That one man? He's having a lot of fun.
There's a lot of there's a lot going on this weekend. So hopefully we got Ronny's. We can get a demo of that, and then if not tomorrow, perhaps Sunday. We also have our new panelist meeting that's tomorrow. So if you're interested in being on the panel, if you have production experience, if you feel like your life experience and the stuff that you're working on is exciting, and you want to share it and you want to give us your perspective, one of the things that makes Office Hours so incredible is all of the different life experiences that come together to talk about how are we finding solutions to the production problems that we're having every day as we're going through. So check it out. New panelist meeting tomorrow after the show, and hopefully we get some Ronny. Next question.
This question is coming from JB Windle in Chiang Mai, Thailand. The UniFi UNAS Pro 4 is now shipping. Has anyone on the panel considered adding it to their workflow?
Tom?
This is painful for me because as a Synology user for a number of years, you get into the system, you know it's reliable, you're happy with it. I've also been a Ubiquity man in the UniFi system. The UNVR for cameras and so forth is very reliable, and the box you're talking about is kind of an upgrade to that, but allow us to use it with the file system externally. Okay, what do I think? I think that the upgrade path is going to take a little bit of a timeline. You don't just jump 100 terabytes from one place to another. You also need to see this thing, make sure it's reliable. I expect it is, because again, the UNVR is its model. We'll just have to take a long look at it and see if it's a great upgrade. I like the 1U form factor. That would help a lot in the rack, but I'm still taking a we'll see attitude.
Ronny?
Yeah, with the new software upgrade that we have seen Ubiquity coming to the market with, I'm thinking of the timing is starting to be correct. So I think maybe not today, but in a few weeks, I will definitely be adding this to my inventory of equipment to be using, not testing. Just put it into to production at once, and enjoy the new softwares that. And I've been kind of reluctant to start using Ubiquity's UNAS products. One of the things that I've been kind of looking for is being more and more prevalent that Ubiquity will be adding to the software. So I think timing is right, and of course we all have our needs, and I think what we see now from Ubiquity is really making it difficult to stay away.
I just want to know how you have time to get any work done when you've got the best cow soy and mango sticky rice in Chiang Mai just outside your door all the time. Like, I would just be completely unable to think about anything else, JB. So I'm just very jealous. Next question.
This one's from Jack Cannon in Phoenix, Arizona. Strange request. I've been brought on for a docu-series that wants to do a multicam live cut of the interviews. We'll record on camera native resolution, but then also record ISOs on the Atem Extreme Iso. Just because you can, should you?
The perennial question. Oliver.
Of course. So if you get it right the first time with the live cut, then you save yourself a lot of time trying to edit it later on. Of course, it's unlikely that you get it right the first time, and that there still needs to be some editing. And it's always good to have multiple backups Strangely, me saying that as a software guy, but if you're doing interviews that can't be redone easily, which is probably the case with docu-series, you better make sure you have that recording, and the more ways to record you have, the better it is. And the live cut is, if it works, it's a time saver, and so it's worth trying.
Chris.
Yeah, Jack, here's the deal. It won't work. I mean, the technology works. Certainly the Resolve, as long as you're okay editing in the Resolve. So you can actually cut it. You'll get a project file out of it. You can then open up in Resolve and fiddle with it. I did only live for like 15 years, 10 years, something like that. And then I got into post-production, and there's nothing that I get that is this kind of workflow that I don't change. I end up changing literally everything. So if you were to give me that content, what I would do is I would bring in your live cut and all your ISOs, and I would make a multicam of all of it. Okay? That's how I do it. And there's going to be changes through your whole thing. But you want all the stuff. And I will say this about the Extreme ISO. You can cut between those shots quite well, and they sync perfectly. It all works. I've never done the trick where you then take the native resolution from the cameras, because you're probably going to be recording with a lot more Ks, and then replacing the media. I've never actually done that part of it, but it is a cool feature as long as you're okay editing in Resolve.
Guy.
Yeah, and if you want to edit in Final Cut and get away from the Atem Extreme's low bit rates, because those are only going to be 50 to 70 megabytes a second, or megabits, so it's not super high quality footage. And if you don't want to work in Resolve, there is this thing called the Atem exporter, which allows you to use HyperDeck. So now you got higher quality footage and the ability, to get this XML and export the program cut. So take a look at that. I'll put a link in the chat.
Do they charge for that app?
They should.
Yeah,
that's pretty
it's
cool.
Not free. Yeah, it's like
Okay,
it was $100. I think they dropped it.
I made it to 11
$79.
o'clock and hadn't spent any money on this show, and you just went and put that in front of me. Ronny?
Sorry, Guy, just to be sure. So what you're saying is it takes the multicam information of the Atem and converts it into a Final Cut multicam project?
Yeah, that's what it does. On the bigger Atems, I don't know if it works on the Extreme. Yeah. So take a look at, I'll put a link in the chat. You
that's cool.
Dive in. Yeah.
Ronny?
I would just do it, and I would take Chris up on his offer to be helping in that case. I would just put it into the Atem Extreme or whatever you have, make a multi-view output of that, and stream that directly to Chris, and he can cut live. That's the best way to do it.
Thank you, everyone, so much for another wonderful Friday of getting smarter with everybody. It is a true privilege to get to hang out with you every week. And also thank you to our producers for asking such great questions, helping drive some lively discussion today. But had a lot of fun. Also, thank you to our great back-end crew for getting up early, staying up late, keeping us looking and sounding good, keeping the show nice and tight. It's really incredible what's been built here, and we have a lot to be thankful for, that we have such a great team of volunteers. The Tlaloc Traversal today, had we gone around in person, asked all these questions, for good old episode 2159 would have been 27,000 miles, 43,000 kilometers, 211 million. Bananas for scale. We'll see you in after hours.
So I am going to need some sort of way to cut a YouTube-y type show. Kind of like what you guys are. Alexander, what are you and Mitchell using? Are you using Mimo?
We do, yeah. Yeah, we do it live. I cut it live.
Yeah.
And Alexander will get a companion plugin probably during this week.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Looking cool.
We live in exciting times.
Chris would be curious to hear what your what you're trying to do if you're doing a podcast for real.
Well, I'm going to try to avoid using the word podcast because it's technically not a podcast because there's no RSS feed. It's just,
thank you.
It's a YouTube
That is
show.
correct.
Dave Weiner,
that is
bless your
correct.
heart.
YouTube.
And maybe I can get Oliver to sponsor my show and set me up with a whole Mimo